Welcome to English Through Ideas, where we learn English through powerful ideas. Today, we're diving into a historical mystery that goes way beyond just dusty old books and secret codes. Actually, this explainer focuses on a puzzle that teaches us a ton about human communication, psychology, and really just how our minds are wired. We're going to look at literally one of the strangest objects in the entire world, and through it, explore how we as humans desperately try to make sense of the totally unknown.
Now, imagine you open up a very, very old book. The pages are absolutely covered in these bizarre drawings. We're talking plants that don't even exist in nature, bathing women, crazy star charts. But you know what the most amazing part is? The words themselves are written in an alphabet that literally no one on Earth has ever seen before. I mean, this thing has completely baffled the absolute smartest minds for centuries, including famous top-tier codebreakers from World War I and II, even the folks who worked alongside Alan Turing. And yet, this book still remains totally unread. So, what is it?
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the most mysterious book.
We're talking about the infamous Voynich Manuscript. The writing inside this actual physical book, which, by the way, is currently locked away safely in the rare book library at Yale University, is so incredibly unique that researchers had to give it its own name, Voynichese. But here's the million-dollar question. We don't even know what Voynichese actually is. Right? Like, is it a real natural language that history just forgot? Is it some ultra-complex secret code hiding a language like Latin or Italian? Or is it just complete nonsense? Meaningless gibberish designed to trick rich people? Well, to start finding some answers, we've got to look at the physical book itself.
Which brings us to Section 2, tracing the unknown history. Because first off, we have to ask, is this book even real? Or is it just some clever modern fake? Well, back in 2009, researchers from the University of Arizona used scientific carbon dating on the book. They tested the vellum, which is that specially prepared animal skin they used for pages in really old books, and the tests proved with super high confidence that these pages were created between the years 1404 and 1438. Even the paint and the ink perfectly match materials used back in the 15th century. So we know for sure, 100%, this is not some modern trick. It is a genuine 600-year-old puzzle. And the journey of this book is just fascinating. Historical letters actually suggest that in the late 16th century, the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II bought it for 600 gold coins, which was a fortune because he believed it was highly valuable. Fast forward to 1639, an alchemist named George Beinecke owned it and desperately tried to get some help translating it. Then, in 1665, it was sent to this famous scholar, Athanasius Kircher, who, you guessed it, also failed to read it. After that, the book literally sat hidden in a library in Rome for hundreds of years, until a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich rediscovered it in 1912. This whole crazy chain of ownership just shows how our human desire to understand this specific book spans across hundreds of years.
So humans have completely failed to read it for 600 years. Which brings us to Section 3, can computers read it?
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it sets up the modern debate. Today, scientists are basically split into two main camps. On one side, you have people who believe it's a natural language, a real structured message just hiding behind a complex code. On the other side, you have the gibberish camp. They believe it's an incredibly elegant, very well-made 15th century hoax, where some guy just made up shapes to look like real words so he could sell the book for a ton of money. Naturally, artificial intelligence has recently tried to settle this debate once and for all. Just a few years ago, researchers at a university AI lab took a crack at it. It was a three-step process. First, they fed the text into an AI which guessed that the underlying language might actually be Hebrew. Second, they assumed the author shuffled the letters around in every single word, creating what we call alphagrams. And finally, they took these newly formed words and, get this, ran them straight through Google Translate. What they came up with was this really strange, super confusing sentence about a priest, a farmer, and some people in a house. Well, as you might expect, medieval scholars and historians were highly, highly skeptical of this result. In fact, a lot of them were pretty frustrated. They quickly pointed out that using Google Translate for ancient, complicated texts is just not a great method. If you seriously want to translate a 600-year-old document, you really need to consult an actual living scholar of ancient Hebrew, not just plug it into a modern internet tool. And honestly, this brings us to a very important lesson, not just about AI, but about ourselves. Modern AI will absolutely hallucinate, or, just make up fake translations simply because the text looks so much like a real language.
Both humans and computers easily fall into this exact same psychological trap. Because the book has repeated words, clear paragraphs, and nice regular spacing, our brains automatically project meaning onto it. We see what we want to see, simply because it looks familiar to us.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds into a totally new way of thinking, finding structure without meaning.
As a recent data researcher named Koshi so brilliantly put it, when content is unavailable, structure becomes evidence. I mean, wow, that is such a powerful idea for any kind of learning, right? When you don't understand the exact details or the content of a message, look at how the message is actually built. By carefully measuring how often certain letters appear and exactly where they show up in a word, scientists can map out the structural shape of the writing, even without knowing a single word of the vocabulary. And this brilliantly illustrates a major recent discovery by a researcher named Christoph Paresel. Notice how the arrows here show that the words themselves are written from left to right, just like English. But mathematically, the letters inside those words actually flow from right to left. It's this incredibly complex, layered structure that the naked human eye literally cannot see. And because this hidden structure is so deeply complex and mathematical, it makes it really, really difficult to prove that the book is just simple gibberish. Think about it. It would be incredibly hard for a human back in the 1400s to just randomly fake a text that follows such strict, hidden statistical rules. This means the book was undoubtedly created with very specific instructions in mind, which keeps the mystery completely alive. These aren't just random scribbles on a page. All right, section 5, our need to communicate. So why does a 600-year-old, totally unreadable book actually matter to us today? So the crucial point is that the Voynich Manuscript highlights some deeply fundamental human traits. First off, our brains are absolutely wired to find patterns, aren't they? When we see chaos, we instinctively try to organize it. Second, we all have this deep desire to solve puzzles. We just don't like unanswered questions hanging around. Third, we project meaning onto the unknown. If something simply looks like a language, we automatically assume it holds a message for us. And finally, it shows just how deeply we long to connect and understand each other across time. We desperately want to hear the voice of the person who sat down and wrote this 600 years ago. In the end, the manuscript isn't just a dusty old book. It's a mirror. When we look at its totally unreadable pages, we're really just seeing our own endless search for meaning, for connection, and for understanding. It reminds us that communication is such a powerful, beautiful thing, and that we should literally never stop trying to understand each other. Thank you for learning with English through ideas. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more ideas, more English, and more growth.